Hello, welcome back to another episode of me talking. um, Today I'm going to talk about Jujutsu Kaisen again because the first time wasn't enough. I mean, I haven't uploaded it yet, but by the time I upload this one, I'm assuming would have uploaded my other episode about Jujutsu Kaisen, where I complain about Jujutsu Kaisen, or the things I don't like about Jujutsu Kaisen, and how it's kind of disappointed me narratively, and I stand by that. Uh, yeah, like I'm not here to correct any of that. In fact, I will be doing more of that today, but just like more pointedly, because I feel like in the other video, and I mentioned I was probably gonna do a part two anyway because there's a lot. Okay, like it's a lot to unpack. Jujutsu Kaisen is a lot to unpack. Um, like narratively wise and like character wise, it's a lot. It's a lot, and you know what? I think, and this doesn't only apply to Jujutsu Kaisen. I am currently in like a hellverse, if you know, brain rot phase right now. And it's really shown me that people are just not accustomed to having overarching stories anymore. Like I feel like in the, I mean, it's gonna sound very like in back in my day, but truly, I think streaming services have made it, and like canceling shows when they don't immediately become hits and things like that have made it so that a lot of shows don't really get second seasons or like overarching stories because they don't get second seasons. So like showrunners or like producers, whatever, writers will put their all like into the first season, hoping it won't get canceled, but like with the like fear that it will because it happens to a lot of shows, unfortunately. So they will just like throw everything at you, like in case they don't get to tell you again, like they present the entire story and either leave it at that or like then they eventually make like another plot for season two, but it's just not great. Like it just there's a severe lack of overarching stories that span across several seasons with several overarching themes and plots. Like a lot of the series now are either episodic or they just like they like throw all the plot they had thought of initially into the first season without like spacing it out because they're not sure they're gonna get the chance to, so they just like tell you everything all at once, and it's not great. So that is something that Jujutsu Kaisen doesn't suffer from. Fortunately, it is very popular, and we're already gonna get season 3 at this point. Like they already confirmed the calling games are getting animated. So it's not the case, but I can't even imagine what it would be like if Jujutsu Kaisen was like that. But yeah, even then, I feel like, how do I say this? Like, as I touched upon in my other video, I feel like Jujutsu Kaisen suffers a little because there's also a balance. I want to say, by the way, like I'm all for overarching series and like having multiple seasons. I'm all for it. I wish we had more of it. Like they just don't make series like Teen Titans anymore, which we will get to Teen Titans. Don't even worry about it. I have a lot to say about Teen Titans, the original. Not Teen Titans Go. Teen Titans, the original, the one that aired in Cartoon Network from 2003, 2006. That masterpiece. Like, I think about them every day. Lost media, for real. But in the sense that, like, they never, like, it got canceled halfway through. Oh, I don't even want to talk about that right now. But anyway, yeah. Like, that's how you do a series. With, like, perfect balance of fluff and, like, filler, but also, like, overarching themes. And that's what I want to get to Jujutsu Kaisen with. I think Jujutsu Kaisen suffers from the opposite. Like, yes, it gets to be an overarching series, but Gege just, he's allergic to giving us side plots. Like, or like, yeah, fluff or like filler, for lack of a better word. Because I think people have associated having filler episodes with like, oh, they're boring or like they bring nothing to the story. I feel like that is incorrect, specifically for stories like Jujutsu Kaisen that are like so heavy and like action focused. I think it would actually benefit to have some episodes where just like the gang hanging out and you get to see them more as characters instead of like weapons. Which, like, we got to see a little bit of when they did the Juju sample, which is, like, the little Juju strolls they did, like, in season 1. I don't remember how many there were. But, like, that one episode where we get to see, like, it's not even an episode, it's, like, a short. Like, Nobara, Megumi, and Gojo, like, Yuuji, Nobara, and Gojo being like, oh my god, Fushigura's getting hit on, like, Formation B. Like, it was so charming. And it was literally, like, 6 minutes at most. But it's like it shows so much of who they are, like their interactions. Like it's so simple, truly. And I feel like Jujutsu Kaisen suffers from that, from not having more filler, which is crazy. But yeah, like, because I think one of my main gripes, as I mentioned in my other video with Jujutsu Kaisen, is that we really don't know anything about the characters as people. Like, for example, take my boy Yuuji, who's on screen right now. I love him, okay? Like, I always love a sunshiny protagonist that has the will of, like, saving the world, and they have this load on their shoulders. But, like, Yuji he's the best, okay? I love him. And he has endured far more than he should be at the club, okay? Like, don't, anyway. But the more you progress in Jujutsu Kaisen, like, as you're reading, it really makes you wonder, like, what is the end game here with him? Because he's the protagonist, but there's times, and I know this is like a highly debated topic on JJK Twitter, like that he doesn't feel like the main character. And I understand what I don't think so, but at the same time I understand why people make that argument. Like, to me, he will always be the MC. I don't get the debate of like, oh my god, Yuta should have been the main character. No, I love Yuta, but that's just simply not the case, okay? Y'all think that because Jujutsu Kaisen Zero is so cool. But no, I don't think it would hit the same. Yuji is the perfect main character, in my opinion, for a series like Jujutsu Kaisen. Except that falls flat when you see how Gege has handled it. Because I think Yuji, personality-wise, and like the way he had developed until some point, developed very loosely because, again, there is nothing in Jujutsu Kaisen that develops characters unless it's like, oh, power up, or like level up, like we can do that now, or I can switch souls or whatever, like I can hit 4 black flashes, like, okay. Anyway, and a lot of Yuji's development, in my opinion, came from the relationships he had with the people around him, because that's Yuji at his core. Like, he cares. He wants to save people, and like that's the kind of conflict he has with Megumi. Like, Megumi's like, you can't save everybody, you're not a hero, you're just a jutsu sorcerer. And you're just like, well, no, I'm going to try anyway. Because I want to give people the proper death. I want people to not be lonely when they die. I want people to, like, like, he wants to save people. He wants to save Junpei. He wants to save Megumi. He wants to save, like, his friends. He cares about people. He wants to save Gojo. Like, okay. So having him interact with people, that's where you really see him shine as as a character. He's just so empathetic and so kind, despite everything that has happened to him. Like, even from the first episode, like the whole premise of him jumping into the rescue when Megumi was like severely outnumbered and like swallowing that finger. Like, that's who he is. He will sacrifice himself. He will jump in to help. He will break through windows and like jump into a fight he knows nothing about just to like back somebody up. Like, Yuji is at his core good. And that's what Megumi kind of struggles with, because he's kind of like, Yuji to Megumi is kind of like Sumiki, like this very just, very kind person that exists in a world that doesn't take care of those people. That exists in a world that takes advantage of that kindness and like destroys it, stomps on it. That's why Megumi is so conflicted about it. But like Yuji's ideology, because I mean, his sister was kind of like that. Like, Sumiki was very much like kind, and like even when Megumi was, kind of mean to her when he dismissed her, she was still there for him, protecting him, even though he didn't think he deserved her kindness. She still gave it to him, and it got her possessed. So he kind of struggles with that a little bit. But anyway, that's who Yuji is, and it's really not like, I think that's where Gege has fumbled the bag by not giving him any time to just interact. Like, we do see some of it, of course, like that. Like, it's not my favorite arc ever. I don't really care about Junpei like that. I know that's unpopular, but I don't really care about Junpei. But like that, it's good to see Yuji like that, because that's when you see who he is. He's just like a kid who like likes to watch movies. Like, it's so cute. I love Yuji. And I feel like that's severely underutilized, because now that we're in the end game of the show, I mean, well, the manga at least, I feel like we have seen nothing from Yuji, even though he's the main character. Like, that's why it pissed me off when they killed Gojo, because, I mean, aside from him being my fave, I love him, and I'm biased, yeah. I also feel like, and I don't think it's a debatable point, that he was the most, aside from Geto, because Geto's very well developed as well, the only like very well, fully rounded, developed character in the series. And like again, I think even though I mean, whether you disagree or not, I feel like it's very hard to debate that because who else were we gunning for? Because Megumi was kind of getting that exploration of his character in Calling Games when he was separated from Yuuji and he had to fight Registar by himself, and like he was starting to like, we see like, it was very interesting where they were going with Megumi. I thought it was very interesting to see him in contrast to Yuuji, even though they were separated. Like when this girl Remy like corners him and he like, after he beats I think it's after he beats Reggie, yeah, he like he sends his dogs on her and she's like no please, like I'm sorry, and he was going to kill her, but then he doesn't do it because he thinks of Sumiki. And I thought that was interesting because we can see kind of like Megumi's jaded personality. Like he's been a sorcerer, like he's 15 first and foremost, but he's been a sorcerer since he like basically was like 5, because that's what the deal he made with Gojo was. Like, hey, I take care of you and your sister, you become a sorcerer. Like, that's it. Like, he knew this was his destiny, and it's not something he picked. It's something he knew he had to do for his sister. So he's very, very, like, cynical in that sense, and it's understandable. Like, he really is just doing this because it's what, like, his life was going to devolve to anyway. Like, his father literally did not care, abandoned him and Sumiki, and then he was killed. He doesn't know about that. Gojo tried to tell him, but he's like, anyway. Like, it really doesn't, like, to make Megumi having hope as per, like, Yuuji does, that I don't think he ever thought it was an option for him. So he just simply doesn't dwell on it. He's like, oh yeah, I'm a jutsu sorcerer, like, people die. That's it. And Yuuji, on the other hand, has the opposite view. It's like, no. Like, yes, you're a jutsu sorcerer, but you can help. You can jump in and, like, try, and we can try to save people. I'm going to save you. And that's what Megumi ultimately asks of Yuuji when he's really at his lowest after like the massacre in Shibuya. And he's like, Itadori, start by saving me. Save me. Okay, Itadori, save me. And Yuuji's like, yeah, I think I will. We're still in the process of that, but but anyway. I don't know. I'm actually now debating if I'm going to upload this first rather than the other video. They're both going to get uploaded, but maybe. We'll see. You'll see when you see it on my channel. But yeah, I just think like Yuuji's and Megumi's dynamic is very, very interesting. We're not going to get into the mirror of Satasugu because we don't have to. You guys already know. Like, if you read Jujutsu Kaisen, you know. We don't have to talk about that. But I think that it's such a, like, again, it bothers me so much that Gege has this, like, level of complexity, because he's created all of this, like, conflict between them, with them barely interacting. And I mean barely because most of their interactions and, like, their, like, them actually being on screen together happens in season 1. Like, it's already happened. You know, like, and even then, like, when Yuji's, like, presumed dead for, like, a couple of months, like, he literally, like, if you think about the timeline of the actual show, they've only known each other for, like, maximum, like, 6 months. Like, when they meet to when Shibuya happens, like, they met, like, maybe early, like, well, what's it, like, must have been December, maybe, like, no, late December, and then, like, it's summer, and then Halloween, like, it's not even a full year. So we don't really get to see a lot of them if you think about it. And even after, like, they find Angel, they're like, let's go free Gojo, they barely get to interact before Mekuna happens, like, Megumi get possessed by Sukuna. And after that, we've just never seen any of them again, because even though Yuji's free and with the motivation to save Megumi and free him from Sukuna's grasp, Gege has decided to deviate the whole plot, just like everybody, like, jumping Sukuna one by one for some reason, and, like, losing. And listen, do I have faith that my GOAT Yuuji will defeat him? Yes, I do. Like, I've never doubted that. This is Yuuji Kaisen. But it's not, like, it doesn't really matter to me. Because, like, yeah, get Sukuna, I guess. Like, of course I don't want him to win. Frick Sukuna lives. I don't care about Sukuna apologies. Like, good for y'all. That's not me. Like, that's not me. Ever since he took my gorgeous blue-eyed king, Gojo, like, what do you want me to do? No. Absolutely not. I think he's a great villain, but I do not care to, like defend him on the internet. He sucks, and I hope he loses, and I can't wait to see his downfall. And Yuji will defeat him because that's like poetic justice, right? And we're just starting to find out that he has like some like other powers. Like, okay, cool, whatever. But what do we know about Yuji? What have we learned about Yuji after Shibuya? Because that whole arc he has with Mahito, amazing. Show stopping, never been done before. Like, that's Yuji kind of really like realizing that what he's in for. Like, yes, he's this hopeful kid who wants to help everyone, but like sometimes it's not possible, period. Just like Megumi said, like he goes into Shibuya being like, y'all, we have to get Gojo Sensei, like, let's do this. And then in like 1-2, he loses Nanami and Nobara to Mahito, like it's nothing, and he has to just keep going. He fights Choso, gets his ass handed to him. Like, he literally experiences horrors beyond humankind in Shibuya. Like it's crazy. And like that's good. Like, you see Gege breaking him down, and it takes a lot because Yuji, king of like being hopeful for real. But like then he meets Megumi, it's like, save me, and he gives him a reason to keep going. That's great. And then like nothing comes out of that though, because it's been like ages since Shibuya officially ended, and then after that it's just like fight, and then like sometimes he talks, but then he's not there for like 20 chapters. And I know he had this like very cool mini arc with Higuruma, but like that's it. Like that was ages ago. Like right now in the present moment where we stand, in the end game of Jujutsu Kaisen, he's done nothing as a character, and it's not his fault. It's Gege's. It's Gege's, because why has he been sidelined the way he has been? There is literally no reason for Yuji to be sitting in the silence watching as Gojo died, and then watching everybody one by one go against Sukuna and die. Like, where are we? Like, what was this? What was this? Like, I want them to tag team Sukuna immediately. Sorry, I have my dog with me, by the way. This is Clutty. But, it's just so stupid to me. Like, like I said in my other video, and I'll reiterate here in case this is uploaded first. It bothers me that if you think about it, most of what's very appealing about JJK, at least at this point in time, and I doubt it will get corrected because, as I said, the story feels like it's ending, is that, like, are things that the fandom kind of created for themselves. Like, most of the nuance in relationship between characters, at least, most of it is fanon. And it's crazy because they stem from ideas that Gege planted there himself. Like, concepts that he originated himself. He put himself in his story that it seems like he's gonna bring up later, or that he was gonna touch upon eventually, but he just didn't. And he's not going to, because it just doesn't make sense now. It just doesn't make sense now. Like, right now, you're fighting the biggest baddie of the whole, like, the main antagonist. And, like, all you can say about Yuuji is that, like, oh, yeah, like, he's kind, that's, like, established in the beginning, of course. Like, all the things that he established at the beginning, and then, like, 1 or 2 more things, like, oh, he learned how to do the Black Flash 4 times. And, like, he can now, like, he can change his arm to be, like, a claw, by the way. Like, everything has to do with his powers. And, like, that's cool, but it's not enough. It's not enough, because what else can we say about Yuuji? Like, he's literally been sidelined from his own series for like a good year and a half, and it's crazy. Like, he makes appearances here and there, and he has his own moments. Like, I know he recently had like a brush-in with Sukuna when he like actually touched his soul, and then Megumi was there, and he's like, Megumi, get up, and Megumi's like, no, I don't think I want to. Like, that was good, but that like came a little too late, first and foremost, and like second of all, they just never touched it again since then. Like, that was like at least 15 chapters ago, and they just haven't addressed it again. Like, okay. And back to being an overarching series, I understand the waiting. I understand building up to something, of course, and I love that. And that's what I think a lot of series are missing nowadays, when they just dump it all into one season in case they don't get renewed. Like, yes, bring on the drama. Bring on the, like, waiting and the anticipation. Like, for example, the whole thing with Sukuna's binding vow with Yuuji that he made all the way back in season 1 with, like, Enchain. And that came back around. That was delicious. I'm telling you, I was waiting for that to come back, and it just didn't. And I was starting to suspect that Gege had forgotten about it. But when it came back, it was delicious. Like, that was payoff. That was great. Chapter 212, You Will Always Be Famous, okay? That was beautiful. That's what I'm talking about. But some of the things that I'm like, okay, so you're definitely going to touch upon this later, right? They just happened. And he's like kind of made decisions that have made it so that they can't happen anymore. And I also mentioned this in my other video, like out of the things that I wanted to happen in Jujutsu Kaisen, that I was really excited to see because that's where I thought this was headed, almost none of them are possible anymore. Because either the people that were in there are dead, or because the story just, it wouldn't make sense for them to happen. And a lot of it revolves around Gojo. I really truly don't have any idea why he killed him off. Like, I don't know. And even now, bringing him back would be such a cheap like way. I mean, it depends on how he does it, but I just don't see the point. Like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know if I can say that I feel that Gege wrote himself into a corner with Gojo, because I really don't think so. I feel like he knew that making a character so powerful would have its consequences, and he handled it really well at the beginning. And like when he got sealed, that was a good work around that. Like, okay, like the whole, like, cause he built up to it, like with the whole like Kenjaku taking over Geto and like Shibuya, like that was good. But after that, like after he got unsealed, that's when it felt like I was like, oh, you just, yeah, no, like it made no sense that Sukuna got that hit on him at all. And I know there's an explanation for it. I know he made a binding bow. I know he made it so that he didn't have to make the gesture to do it. Like, my whole god, I don't care. It still felt very cheap. Like, yes, I guess technically, okay. Oh, sorry. I guess technically it was okay. Like, it was justified, but it wasn't well done. Like, at all, in my opinion. And it's just, I don't know, it loses a lot of the charm because, like I said, Gojo's one of the only, if not the only, no. I don't think he's the only. I think, for example, Geto's very well developed, but like Geto's dead. Geto's been dead since the beginning of the story. Like that's how bad it is out here for us. Like well-rounded characters, like someone who knows we know their motivation, we know their actions, we know their heart, and even though like Gojo still remained and like died a very mysterious character. Like we know nothing about his family. We know like things like that, and he's like very gray morally. But even still, we like he for me is for sure was the most like well-rounded character like sentiment wise that we had in the series. Not only him being the strongest, but like him as like his motivations and the way he is, the way he acts, the way he reacted to things. Why and that's saying something because he was sidelined also for a lot of the story. Like he was sealed in canon for like maximum like 2 weeks, I think it was, or like a month. But like in real life. Like it was almost like 2.5 years, something like that. Like he got sealed in 2020 and then he didn't come back until 2023, like April 2023. So but it was like it felt purposeful. It felt like okay, that had a purpose because of course if Gojo was there it would have ended in nothing. But then nothing else has felt that way ever since. Like why is Kenjaku dead? Like of course I don't want him to win. I hate Kenjaku. But it felt like he was being built up to be this like bad guy, like to rival Sukuna. Like it was so ominous, and he's such a mastermind. And then he just like died, and then we have never touched that again. Like that happened ages ago, and like it's just like okay, we've never coming back to that. He just died, and I know that it's a possibility that he might come back in this grand way, because like I know the brain can switch bodies and whatever. It doesn't really matter to me. The fact that they like that even happened, that he like lost the fight to this like comedic guy, it felt, I was like, oh really, that's it? Like okay, moving on. Like what was the impact of that? Nothing. And if he doesn't come back, what? So you just built him up like that to have him do Shibuya, which was great, and then just that's it? What about the binding vow he made about the Culling Games? What about like his deal with Sukuna? Like, are we serious? That's it? Anyway, like, I don't know. And yeah, that's my main problem with Yuuji. Not with him, but with Gege's writing of Yuuji. Because I hate when people say that somebody else should be the main character aside from him. But at the same time, Gege has given us nothing to feel like he is the main character. Except he's the coolest. I love Yuuji. He's my goat. But like for example, I see the same argument for Megumi. I think Megumi's the coolest. I love Megumi, and I know a lot of people don't agree, which is so weird to me. Like you guys are weird for that. I'm sorry. He's great. I love him. They're like, oh, maybe Megumi should have been the main character. I'm like, well, no. He's like they're both protagonists. That's a word for it. They're antagonists. Dude, I don't know how to pronounce it. I hate that word because It's cool, but I don't know how to pronounce it. I never know how to pronounce it. The protagonists, I don't know. They're both protagonists in their own right, kinda. But Yuuji's the MC. But Megumi is such an interesting character, and I feel like we know way more about Megumi than we know about Yuuji. And yes, again, an overarching series, so you can wait for it. Like, just because you get the backstory for somebody else, and like we know their motivations first, doesn't mean we won't get the rest of the other ones later. Like, of course, they're building up for something, fine. But at the same time, and we do know a little bit about Yuji's backstory as well, kinda, like when we find out that Kenjaku was his mother. Like, okay, fine, like Choso, whatever. But like for Megumi, in the like we know all these things, his connection to Gojo, like his father, because everything stems from his inventory, right? Like Gojo and Geto altered the balance of jutsu sorcery forever when they took that job. Anyway, so we know a lot about Megumi and we know a lot about his motivations and the way he feels. But the problem here, like, is that because okay, for Yuji we almost know nothing, but okay, he's still out here. I think we'll get something hopefully. But for Megumi, it's the opposite. We know a lot about his motivations and the way he feels, and like we've gotten like backstory, but it was just not like he's been inactive essentially for like forever now. Like in calling games, we get to see him again. They started kind of like exploring all these feelings and all this backstory and all this like sentiment that Gege wrote for him. And they kind of like started touching upon that. I was very excited to see that. I was kind of hoping maybe he would get a mini like not villain arc. I don't think he'd be evil. I just think he'd like have this like breaking point of like he would just go ham, you know. And I thought it was gonna be really cool. It didn't happen. They didn't touch it again. Like it just kind of got brushed off. Like they see that's the thing. Gege built like feels like he's building up to something, but it just never pays off. And it's really annoying because the build up is so hype. You're like, oh, this is gonna be good. Like, oh, when this pays off, it's gonna be good. Just like it was with like Divining Vow with Yuuji, like and Chain. Oh my god, yeah, gag. But like with Megumi, it feels like Gege was building up for him to like have this big reaction, which I guess you can kind of say he did when he fought Reggie, because he actually went very ham there. But like after, like we see the shift of him like realizing, oh, like I'm in this situation, I'm going to react the way I think. Like he was going to kill Remy, he was going to, and then he thought of Sumiki. And then we can see how Sukuna uses Sumiki against him, which I also said in my video that was kind of cheap because it wasn't even Sumiki, it was just a like Yorosu, but still Megumi like sunk into the abyss. Like yes, I get it, but like see, it cheapens the impact because it just you put this idea that Megumi's sister is like one of his biggest motivations and the reason he didn't kill Remy and the reason he still keeps going and the reason he made that deal in the first place to be a sorcerer when he grew up, like all these things, and then just like have her die in like 10 chapters and she wasn't even herself. It was just like a random demon that like was there to flirt with Sukuna. Like okay. Okay, like that's it. And like you as an audience member can't even really care. Well, at least I didn't, because we know nothing about Sumiki except what we know from what Megumi has told us, which is like she's kind. Yeah, okay, show me she's kind, because we got like that one like episode where he has like a flashback of her being like, hey, like yes, but like see, that's where Jujutsu Kaisen could benefit from filler. If we had this like shorts of them like when they were little and Megumi and Sumiki took care of Megumi, or like how Gojo interacted with her as well, how she like Megumi would visit her in the hospital or something. I don't know, it just, you tell us that they're like super close and that Megumi would do anything for his sister, but then just like show us like maybe 2 interactions and then you expect me to like be so upset when she dies. Like I was, because I knew Megumi was going to be, but other than that, we didn't know Sumiki as a character enough for us to care. And that's my problem with Gege. There's a lot of characters here in Jujutsu Kaisen that he has made, like, set up for, like, big moments, like, fighting-wise, that I haven't cared about because I don't know them. Like, I talked about this in my other video as well. I know it's very unpopular, but I don't care about Kashimo. I never cared about Kashimo. I know his design is cool. I know his powers are cool. I don't care. And I know we get a little bit of, like, backstory here and there, like, oh, he's this, like, from the Heian era. I don't care. So why would I care if he like faces Sukuna and then dies. Like, I don't. Or why would I care if he faces Sukuna and then wins? I wouldn't care because I don't know who he is. You know who I want to root for? Yuuji. Because he's our main character and I know who he is, kinda, from what you've like shown me from the earlier season, but you've never touched upon that again. That's why I feel like people are very sympathetic to Yuta, because I feel like we know him better. In Jujutsu Kaisen, they did such a, like, Jujutsu Kaisen 0. They did such a good job of like showing us who Yuta is as a person, not as a sorcerer, as a person. How he reacts to things, how kind he is, how shy, how like willing to like he loves his friends, and we see not only do they tell us that, we see that like Geto comes to attack this school and he stands his ground for his friends and he's like willing to die there for his friends, and like Rika, and like we see that, and it's a movie like hour and a half, whatever, and you manage to like really make this character well-rounded, and we can see it that he cares about his friends. And I also think it's because of the like low-key filler we get in the movie when like they're like training, for example. Is that like a big huge like thing that moves the plot along, like a huge thing? No, but it's nice to have, because we can see Yuta interacting with these people, how he gets to know them, how he eventually grows to care for them. So that's why I feel like people are very sympathetic to Yuta, because not only is he like the coolest, but also we know who he is. We know he's empathetic, kind, and he cares, and he would sacrifice everything for his friends. We know that because consistently the show has showed us that. But with Yuuji, we see so little of him now that it's like we know he's kind, we know he's like we know from like the beginning of the show, but we have not seen that because we haven't seen him in like ages. So yeah, it's very frustrating, aside from everything I mentioned in my other video that I find really frustrating about Jujutsu Kaisen, like things never getting addressed again. Like specifically I want to talk about the characters, because I'm really drawn to stories because of the characters. And I was drawn to Jujutsu Kaisen because of these characters, not because of the premise. Because truly, the premise, it's really cool. Like, now that I'm in here, obviously, I like it and I'm very invested. But I don't usually gravitate towards stories like these. And I hadn't at the beginning. I really was moved by Yuji's empathy in the first episode. Like, his grandpa had just died, and then randomly this like kid is like, give me the finger, and then Yuji's like, what finger, what the heck? And then this kid goes to fight against this curse, and this like mini hero like bursts into the windows like, I'll help you and I'll help my friends, like I'm not gonna leave you here, even without knowing what he was up against. Like, that moved me. Okay, that's my Yuji. So I love him, and I hope we would see more of him. And truly, that's one of my greatest disappointments with Jujutsu Kaisen. That I really hope... I mean, again, at this point, I feel like the story is ending, so there's not much to be done about it. And I have a lot of qualms with Jujutsu Kaisen, as, again, mentioned in my other video. But like, I think this might be the worst one. Because it's just such a fumble when you already have all the pieces to not, like, develop them. It really... It's like one of the biggest disservices I think Gege has done for this story that is so dear. And I'll also say that I'm still tuned in. Like, I'm not keeping up with the manga like weekly anymore, because I just low-key don't care about what's happening right now. But when the ending approaches, I will be there no matter what. I will be seated to watch my goat defeat Sukuna. So you can count on that. Anyway, tell me what you think about this dilemma I have down in the comments. Some of you agree. If you disagree, maybe you disagree. But tell me why, because I'm actually genuinely very curious, because I don't think it's very debatable that Gege has really thrown out all the potential he had for the characters. But maybe you bring another perspective. So let me know, and I'll see you in the next episode.